So we're going to do now number 8 from the same set of exercises from 6.6. Let me just start my timer here. These videos cannot be any longer than 15 minutes, so I have to keep track of that. This one won't take us that long. So we have number 8 over here. We have this conclusion from these premises. So we have to decide if we're going to do conditional or indirect proof to get this conclusion from those premises. Well, again, like we saw in this one here, since our conclusion is not a conditional statement, this is not a good candidate for conditional proof, but it is a good candidate then for indirect proof. Once we decide to do indirect proof, we're going to indent and assume the opposite of the thing we're trying to get. In this case, tilde m. So again, the guaranteed way to get the opposite of something is always just to put a tilde in front of it. This is an assumption for indirect proof. And remember, we're going to try to get a contradiction then somehow out of this, right? It might be m dot tilde m. It might be p dot tilde p. It might be n dot tilde n. We don't know at the outset. And this is why indirect proof is just a slight bit more difficult than conditional proof. What we're trying to get here is a little bit less specific than it would be if we were doing a conditional proof. All right. As always, though, I try and use my assumption right away, tilde m, and what do you know? Right there in number 1 is a tilde m. So this is a great setup for p, horseshoe, q, and p. In other words, modus ponens. Modus ponens 1 and 4 there, giving us n dot o. So, n dot o we have. We're not going to worry about a contradiction until we've used all of our premises on our assumption. So can I use these other premises? Well, look. N is here, O is there. I've got n dot o. So I think we can recognize that we just want to break down number 5. So we're going to simp number 5 to get the n. We're going to do com. Enabling us to simp number 7 to get the o, right? So it's a quick process there just to break down n dot o, simp the left-hand side, spin it around with commutativity, and then simp off the o. Why did I do that? Well, because clearly in 2 and 3 here I can use those pieces to do modus ponenses. So we go 9 here. I'll do a modus ponens with 2 and 6, giving me p. By the way, if you had decided to do your modus ponens up here in line 7 after you did simp off the n, that would have been perfectly fine. It would have just been a different order, right? But you'll use the same rules as I'm going to use. We got p. Now, we've got 3 here, the only premise we haven't used yet. And we have o down here in 8. That's the setup for modus ponens. 3 and 8, giving us tilde p. And so it is finally here on line 10 that I have used all of my premises and my assumption, of course. And it's at this point I want to turn to see if I can get a contradiction somehow. Now, can we get a contradiction? Well, in fact, here they are, right? The 2 pieces of what will be our contradiction, p and tilde p. And I just want to note here, and this is why I've left this other problem up on the screen. Of course, here when we got our contradiction, the contradictions, so to speak, just fell into our lap, right? We did some replacement rules here a couple times, and then we had a contradiction we could unindent. That's not usually how indirect proof works. Usually how indirect proof works is you'll get one piece of a contradiction on one line and another piece of a contradiction on another line, and you will have to do what we're going to do now, and that is you'll have to conjoin them. You'll do conj to put those 2 pieces together, creating your contradiction. And that now, once we have our contradiction, that is when we unindent. So line 12 here is lining up with 1, 2, and 3, right? And these are all indented right there. Line 12 is lining up with those. And I just want to emphasize here, don't overthink this. Once you've unindented, the hard part of this problem is over, because you're going to do the same thing every time here when it comes to this unindenting line. You're simply going to write down your assumption and then put a tilde in front of it. That is your indirect proof step lines 4 through 11, not 4 through 4, as I seem to have written, but 4 through 11, indirect proof, 4 through 11, giving us double tilde m. Then, as we saw in this last problem, right, our very last step, which I'll just squeeze in up here, but you get the idea. 13 here would be unindented. 13 would be our plain vanilla m by double negation on 12. So sorry, it's a bit of a mess here squeezing this in. But just remember, very often in indirect proof, the last step will have to be like it was over here. You take one more step to use double negation to clean up all of those tildes. And there we have on 13 our conclusion. And so we're done.